So the Nintendo Switch is doing something very strange in the gaming market right now, because if you look at the overall landscape of gaming today in 2023, you know that Sony and Microsoft compete kind of directly head to head with each other, and Nintendo has found this hybrid form factor console to have its own giant success and mass market appeal. And for a lot of gamers, the Nintendo Switch is probably an additional console that you own if you do own a PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series S or X. And you clearly notice whenever it comes to things like development cost and the overall software development cycle that things are getting longer, things are getting more expensive, but there's no arguing that Nintendo probably spends a fraction on the development cost of some of their major software that sells extremely successfully on the Switch in comparison to what Sony and Microsoft are doing with their broader AAA graphical showpieces that, while they look incredible, take far longer to develop, sometimes have more issues at launch and day one patches that have to be applied. And Nintendo's not exempt from that, by the way. Just look at Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and they have their fair share of performance issues with modern games that come out on the Switch due to the Tegra X1 and its age. But today we need to talk about a very interesting article that has pointed out kind of something that is unthinkable, or the unprecedented, if you will, for Nintendo and what they are doing specifically in the gaming market. Because when it comes to the revenue that Nintendo is actually bringing in from a first-party developer perspective, it is significantly head and shoulders above what Microsoft and Sony are doing. And the only reason this was really being brought to light is due to that insane FTC trial going on for the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger. We got a lot of very interesting tidbits about the gaming market as a whole, and this one we're about to read through right now kind of blew me away when it comes to what Nintendo is doing and how they are operating in terms of revenue to their bottom line. But first, I want to tell you guys about today's video sponsor. Big thank you to Microids for sponsoring this video and allowing me to tell you guys about Noob the Factionless. Do you want to embark on an epic adventure in the world of Noob? Well, Noob the Factionless is a fantastic turn-based RPG that will take you on an unforgettable journey. Step into the universe of Noob, the French transmedia franchise loved by millions since 2008. Join the Rush Guild, a group of 4 beginner players, as they strive to reach level 100 and unlock their legendary class in the MMORPG Horizon. Explore a vast and rich world filled with thrilling battles and exciting quests. Watch your team's level grow as you conquer challenges and unlock new abilities. Noob the Factionless offers a true RPG experience with well over 50 hours of gameplay. Interact with over 750 avatars, each with their own unique stories and personalities. Wander through more than 300 beautifully crafted maps, each waiting to be explored. The story unfolds as you play as a team of hardcore gamers and their video game avatars. Choose your path and customize your fighters with the best equipment and become a force to be reckoned with. In Noob the Factionless, you'll also have the chance to play against real players in the world. Discover who's hiding behind the avatars of your friends or your enemies. Noob the Factionless is available on the Nintendo Switch right now on the eShop, and is also available on other platforms, and will be getting a physical release for you collectors out there on August 29th. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment below. Huge thank you to Microids once again for sponsoring today's video. As you can see, the following posted up over on Tweaktown, where it says Nintendo conquers console publishing revenues, beats Sony by 3 billion, Xbox by 3.8 billion. Data from the FTC versus Microsoft evidentiary hearing shows how much of a lead Nintendo has over PlayStation and Xbox in terms of first-party revenues. Most gamers already know how big Nintendo is. Microsoft really drove this point home in key witness testimony in the federal case, with the intent to undermine the FTC's high-performance relevant market, which omitted Nintendo from the picture. Not only does the Switch have substitution effects with PlayStation and Xbox, but the device is the best-selling console across both Gen 8 and Gen 9 systems. Testimony from economist Dr. Liz Bailey outlines just how big Nintendo is compared to PlayStation, Xbox, and other third-party publishers in the console gaming market. According to data provided by her in the courtroom and relayed by MLEX reporter Michael Acton, Nintendo has a $3.8 billion lead over Sony's publishing revenues and a significant $3.8 billion lead over Xbox. Now you can then see the stack ranker chart, which shows Nintendo sitting at the top at $5.18 billion in revenue from their first party content. EA is behind them at $4.5 billion, Take-Two at $2.3, and it really falls off a cliff from there. Sony at $2.1, Activision Blizzard $2 billion, Epic Games $1.7, Ubisoft $1.4, then you have Xbox Game Studio $1.3, and Bandai Namco at $980 million. Now they then point out, remember that this publishing revenue is from first-party game sales and monetization across the console market and includes data on Gen 8 PS4, Xbox One, Gen 9, PS5, Xbox Series, and the Nintendo Switch. These values align with our own data from Nintendo's first-party games revenues for the 2021 calendar year. So you really have to stop and think about that and let it sink in for a minute, because we are talking about the Switch competing across the entire console family, meaning as far back as the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One consoles in that generation, which has a giant install base. And then you have, of course, Microsoft and Sony's more modern consoles with the Series and with the PS5, and yet Nintendo is still coming out head and shoulders above in terms of total revenue when it comes to their software. Now, one reason that you can kind of look at for that has to do with Nintendo really relying primarily on their own first-party developed software to sell their systems, and that is why, as a Nintendo gamer, we get almost month in and month out something new from a first-party perspective in terms of a Nintendo release. You do not see Sony and Microsoft and their first-party studios stick to that same kind of publishing cadence. You just don't. There's been a lot of talk around gaming on Xbox Series consoles since the console generation launched, and Xbox really not having many first-party home hitter big titles dropping at all, period. And if you're a Game Pass subscriber, you're playing primarily third-party or just Microsoft-owned assets from the past. And definitely Activision Blizzard acquisition, providing it all gets signed and done and wrapped up, will help offset those numbers. Right now, Microsoft, they don't drop that many first-party published games, and Sony's kind of in the same situation, although they do definitely drop more. And another strategy that Nintendo implements is that years and years after release, they never really truly discount their games from a dollar amount perspective. I mean, go try to pick up Zelda Breath of the Wild, the game that launched with the Nintendo Switch console in March of 2017. It's still selling at a $60 regular retail. So people who pick up a Nintendo Switch today and build out their gaming catalog pay essentially full retail price outside of the occasional big first-party Nintendo publisher sales that we see hit the eShop. And clearly you can go the used market route and buy some of those Nintendo Switch games at a discounted price, but Nintendo sticks to their guns on their overall price of the software. I'm not a fan of that personally. I actually wish that they would bring back something like the Player's Choice or Nintendo Selects that we've seen them do in the past, where first-party Nintendo games ultimately get discounted down to that $20, maybe even $30 price point this time around. But I do feel like it's kind of outrageous that you're paying for a 6-year-old game at the same retail $60 price that it launched at, but somehow Nintendo can get away with that, and that definitely feeds into this total revenue number that we're talking about. But at the end of the day, whether you're on board with their market practices or not as being a gamer, it still correlates to more revenue for Nintendo to reinvest back to reinventing themselves and putting into R&D for next gen consoles and things, as well as greenlighting some games that we may have not seen developed otherwise, and hiring in studios, or how Nintendo has done so far, reinvest in themselves to hire within and expand their internal studios. That might be the reason why we get games like Super Mario RPG that are on the release roadmap for 2023. When a company is thriving when it comes to a revenue perspective, they can double down and reinvest that money to give us gamers a better overall experience. And while I wish we had a more powerful Switch so we could run more of the modern third-party AAA games that are hitting the market, I do think it is rather exceptional that Nintendo can keep their entire player base more or less happy with releases just from their own first-party software, and we are seeing this reflect in the numbers at the bottom line compared to Sony and Microsoft. I'm saying all this as somebody who owns all three consoles and really don't have any bias other than the fact that I find myself gaming on my Switch more than the other consoles at the end of the day, because I've just always had that soft spot for Nintendo titles, and I tend to enjoy the gameplay style and presentation the most, even though the graphics clearly aren't there with some games like we see released on the other platforms. God of War Ragnarok on the PS5 is one perfect example that I enjoyed thoroughly playing through and through. But while you may see a price drop on God of War Ragnarok sometime soon, and it may stick at that price for the foreseeable future from Sony, we will probably not see any Zelda or Mario games regularly discounted outside of one-off sale occasions and big holiday type sales that do tend to happen year in and year out. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and opinions around these findings and the revenue share that Nintendo has of the gaming market from the software perspective. Do you find this fascinating and interesting how far above Nintendo is than every other first-party studio, especially Sony and Microsoft by comparison? Do you think that ultimately equates to us getting more regular first-party releases, and that it's a good thing at the end of the day to see Nintendo thrive like this? Or do you think that Nintendo's maybe being a little bit greedy here, sticking to their guns on the price point of their games, and you would like to also see the Player's Choice or Nintendo Select games come back? And bonus question, do you think that this regular one per month loosely new first-party Nintendo software release schedule will continue into things like next gen, or do you think this is something that Nintendo could potentially slow down on production of first-party titles in the future? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.